Today I'm going to share 3 beauty photography tools that I can't live without. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here, and one of my specialties is beauty photography. And so I get hired to shoot a wide range of different subjects, all in the realm of beauty. Everything from hair to cosmetics to skincare to eyelashes, you name it. And when I am shooting beauty photography, there are certain tools that I use over and over again. These specialty tools make me better at my job as a commercial beauty photographer. And so that's what I want to share with you today. Now, these 3 tools are a macro lens, the Light Reflector, and a Scrim. So let's take a look at these 3 tools that I use as a beauty photographer. First up is a macro lens. When I first started in photography, I used a macro lens to photograph flowers. And then as a wedding photographer, I was using it to capture details, like the detail of a ring. And then when I got into portrait photography and fashion photography, I kind of forgot about it until I started shooting beauty, because beauty is all about the details. Now with portrait lenses, you can crop relatively tightly, get a head and shoulder shot. But a macro lens allows me to get so close that I can fill the frame with just the center of the face, or just the eyes, or just the lips. So if I need to capture the details of every single lash, well, I'm going to need a macro lens to do that. The lens that I'm using is a Canon RF 100mm macro lens. It is gorgeously sharp and is going to allow me to capture the detail that I need. Now, if you're looking at a macro lens, they do come in different focal lengths. Don't go for something that's a wider angle macro lens, like a 60mm, for example, because the compression won't be as flattering and you're going to need to be really close to your subject. Instead, aim for something in the 100 range, or 105, or 150, or even 180. Gives you a little bit more working distance, and it's going to be beautiful compression. The next tool that I cannot live without is the Light Reflector. So many photographers ask me, what do they do if they don't have an assistant to hold a reflector? Well, I usually don't have my assistants hold the reflectors anyway, because that means that their hands are tied, not being able to help me with something else, and also they might move and change the light. So what I love about a Reflector is that I can basically act like I have multiple assistants and holding multiple reflectors. It's really nice because it's variable, and so I can have 1 reflector, I can have 3 reflectors, I can have it be silver on one side, white on the other, I can have it filling in all around the subject or just on one side, and so it gives me a lot of control. I use this all the time in my beauty photography. Sometimes I want just a little bit of clamshell light, maybe a silver reflector filling in from below. Or sometimes I want to fill in all the shadows, make everything even and smooth and creamy, and so I use 3 white reflectors and box my subject in. What's really nice is that its arms are variable, so I can move the reflectors closer, further away, I can change the angles of the reflector so that I'm catching the light and giving myself the perfect illumination on the subject. The third beauty photography tool that I cannot live without is a Scrim. Fundamentally, a Scrim is a frame with a piece of diffusion material over it. But what makes it special is that you can create extremely soft light. Now, one of the rules of lighting is the larger the light source is compared to the size of the subject, the softer the light. And so of course you can get soft light with a large umbrella or a big softbox, but you can get really soft light when you light a really big Scrim. And so here I have the Westcott Scrim Gym. It's an 8 by 8 foot Scrim. What I can do is light this Scrim from behind. The light hits the diffusion material, spreads out, and becomes a beautiful, broad, soft light source. So for beauty photography, when I'm asked to photograph cosmetics or skin, where I just want beautiful, soft light, a Scrim is my go-to. Now, by the way, if you do not have the space for a large Scrim like this, well, you can get them in different sizes. You can get 4 by 4 foot, 4 by 6, 6 by 6. You can even go 12 by 12. But just remember, the larger the Scrim will create a softer light source, and the closer you get it to your subject will also make it softer. So now that you know the 3 beauty photography tools I cannot live without, let's take a look at these 3 tools in action. This setup is one of my go-tos and probably one of the things I get hired to do the most. Create an image that is all about skin and skin tones. So let's first talk about my camera setup. Today I'm going to be shooting with the Canon R5 and the Canon RF 100mm macro. Now the reason I love the R5 is it has a lot of great features, including a lot of megapixels to work with, which is fantastic if I need to crop in. but also because it has face and eye tracking. So when I get really close with that macro lens, I want it to be able to do the hard lifting for me. It actually focuses for me. It finds the eye closest to camera, focuses on that, makes my job so much easier. And one of the things I like about the 100mm focal length is that it actually can be quite versatile. So I can shoot a head and shoulder shot if I'm standing a little bit further away, and that can be great if I'm trying to show the clavicles or I want to include a little bit of the hair. But then with that macro lens, I can move in closer and closer, and because of my minimum focus distance, I can get so close that I could just focus on a part of her face. So that's what I'm going to be working with for my camera setup. Now let's talk a little bit about the lighting. Now, as I already mentioned, I'm going to be using the Westcott Scrim Gym, the 8-foot by 8-foot, and I'm going to use a ProPhoto D2 with no modifier to light that scrim. Now, if you want the light to become even softer, you could add an umbrella so that the light is bouncing into the umbrella, then spreading out and then bouncing into the scrim, and it will give you even softer light. But I like using the bare bulb because I think it gives me like a nice in-between. It's soft, but just a little bit of specularity. So we're going to shoot this first, and then I'm going to show you the difference when I add the triflector into the equation. Okay, perfect, love that. Perfect. Looking at the light from the scrim, you can see that it is just gorgeous. I have beautiful highlights on her cheekbones, but because I have the scrim at a relatively high angle, it's still carving out her jawline, giving her beautiful sculpting shape. Now you'll also notice that I was using the 100 macro, but I didn't use it as a macro. I backed up a little bit so I can still get a head and shoulder shot. And in a bit, I'm going to show you how I would use those macro capabilities to fill the frame. Now, by the way, the entire point of this shot is to be all about skin and those warm tones. And so it's important to notice the background that I'm using in this case, which is Savage Universal Beige. This is one of my go-to backgrounds when I want to have warm tones and I'm photographing a lighter skin tone. Okay, so you see what it looks like with just the scrim, but now let's add my triflector into the equation. Put it right in front of you. All right, so let's get another image. Adding the triflector has made a huge difference. And I've used the silver side of the triflector because I'm using a soft light source and I wanted it to be able to bounce more light. So you can see that it gives this beautiful glowing quality to the skin and it really fills in all the shadows. So this looks absolutely stunning on her. And you noticed that I carefully adjusted the angles of the triflector because I used the modeling light so I could see what angles of the reflector were correctly bouncing the light. So you've seen what it looks like using just the scrim, you've seen the differences when adding the triflector, and now let's take a look at the differences when using the macro capabilities of my lens. All right, so let's get real close. All right, so just like that is perfect, but I'm gonna get super close. All right, so right now, I'm just focusing on her eye and the face and eye tracking is locking on that eye, beautiful. And then I'm gonna get even closer for just her eye. So there you have it, the 3 beauty photography tools I cannot live without. And if you're more interested in beauty photography and you want to dive into it more in depth, well, I have several great resources for you. First of all, I have a tutorial on learnwithlindsay.com called the Beauty Photography Class, where I go through all of the different aspects of beauty photography, from lens choice to camera angle to posing to lighting to considerations for hair and makeup and model choice and so much more. And if you would like more content about this on YouTube, well, if you check Adorama's YouTube channel, I have so many different videos dedicated to lighting, lens choice, and other topics that are really important if you want to dive into this beautiful world of beauty photography. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see the gear that I use in the making of these images, be sure to check out the links in the description below and check out that gear at adorama.com. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.